Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Friday, October 4th, 2024, coming to you from our studio at Techtown. I am Jer Stays, and across the table from me is none other than the excellent Mr. Friday, Devon O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Jer. You know what? I think October is in the running for best month in Detroit and Michigan. It's just gorgeous.
And you know what? My September was terrible, so I'm glad that September is ended.
Mine was busy as all get out. So October, I'm hoping to settle down a little more, really get into the season. Decorations are up at the O'Reilly household. Halloween decorations are up. I was working on those this weekend. So once October 1st hits, Halloween is in the air.
Are you a month out guy?
Absolutely. So without saying too much, our neighborhood is like a huge Halloween bastion of activity. So we have to get a month out. If I put my Halloween decorations out like this weekend, it'd be too late because we're already popping off there. So I had to put the giant spider web and the spider and all the stuff. I try and keep it easy on myself, but we are fully decorated.
Not to share too much, but you have more than one story on your place. Do you go all the way up to the roof? Do you like some Griswold stuff?
Look, helping my dad for years and years, putting up Christmas decorations and almost watching him die multiple times, I've learned that I was the ladder holder to keep it easy on myself. So basically, I use the second story in so much as I can like poke out the top window and hang the spider web and then just drop it down. It's a 2-story feature of my decorations, but I used it from like the comfort of my bedroom and just dropping something out the window to hang.
So there won't be a set of reindeer on the roof for Christmas?
I don't get on ladders, man. Not like that. Like 3 steps is my max.
Did you know that I used to wash windows and climb ladders?
For a living?
Yes, during summers.
That sounds just...
I had a non-compete when I worked at a TV station, which means I couldn't work anywhere in the business. So in order to make ends meet, because they only gave me 20 hours a week to start, washed windows all over the east side of Metro Detroit.
Oh, man. Well, the jobs we take when we're young, Jer.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so where we've been. I've got a place, you've got a place. I'll start with a soft opening.
Hey, it's never a bad time to talk coffee, right?
Correct. And there is it's a new entrant, but it's a replacement entrant.
Okay.
Sepia Coffee is over on Grand Boulevard. It's between Woodward and the freeway, just west of Hastings Street.
Okay.
And they've got their soft open. They've been actually serving in various pop-ups. They've got their roasting in the Congregation and a bunch of other places where they sell the beans. And it's very much devoted to the roots of the neighborhood. Because, you know, the North End has a lot of roots in regards to African-American culture. And I'll just give you really quick what their little thing is paying homage to Detroit's Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. Our coffee collections are inspired by streets, landmarks, and prominent residents who once called this enclave home. So they're opening up their flagship coffee shop. They've been roasting for a while. I don't like to judge things just on soft opens, but they've taken over somewhere that what used to be a coffee shop. Mm-hmm. They're keeping some of the stuff going. They've got lots of not just coffee, but coffee making materials.
Okay.
And coffee making implements that are very pretty. So if you're really into that coffee world, they've got that additional stuff.
Well, if they're selling the beans, that helps. Here's my 2 cents of not obviously having been there yet, although I'd love to check it out because I love a coffee shop. To say that, I think, hey, you can't have too many coffee shops, in my opinion. Now, as a business model, I have to look at anything with skepticism a little bit and say, like, how many coffee shops are in that area? If nothing else, coffee shops are that third space where people can hang out. So if nothing else, this is good news in that there's a new place or a newish place that people can go and hang out at, spend some time, maybe get some work done. But coffee shops aren't the type of place that tend to generate a lot of revenue, if you know what I mean. So hanging out and drinking a $4 cup of coffee for an hour isn't really a great business model. You kind of need something else. So I hope that it succeeds. I think it's great that it's there, but you got to have something. You got to have a niche, right? Jerry, like, you can be okay. You can barely survive on being a neighborhood coffee shop, but you're not going to grow or be successful unless you're able to pull in people to come to you as a destination.
Well, Milwaukee Cafe is in walking distance of a short walking distance. One big difference is that Sepia has more indoor space.
Yeah.
So they have seats along the windows. There's one of those big communal tables. Again, they're going to do more, and they're still figuring out all their stuff. I'm glad to see another option there. You're absolutely right, though. It's important that places find kind of what their niche is. Like, I go here to do some work. Or like in Milwaukee's case, I'm in and out because it's a coffee window. Like, it's super fast. Mm-hmm. There's Cafe Noir up the street. It's funny, though, because our studio here in Techtown, there actually isn't really a coffee shop in too close walking distance until you go to Stella Good at the Fisher Building. There isn't really much around here for now until you get there. By the way, I did notice that the Fisher Building, they're finally doing the work on the main entrances, fixing those things. For like 2 years, they've had signs up that they're imagining improvements, and it looks like they're actually happening now.
Well, that's fantastic to see. I'm glad. And yeah, we talk about it all the time, right? Like when I'm coming here to pick up a coffee, there just isn't, I have to think ahead of time to pick up something somewhere a little bit farther out because there's nothing like walkable within a couple blocks.
That may change with the new housing developments.
Yes.
You've been somewhere as well, but not in the city of Detroit.
No. Back in Dearborn, there was a pretty big event. I don't know how we look at this as like grand opening of a park. And this has been on my radar for quite some time. The Peace Park that was going to be opening in Dearborn. These were funds that were partially city funded, partially DDA tax capture funded, public spaces. So this is very much a placemaking play. There are 3 Peace Parks that are going to open in the city of Dearborn. One on the east end, one on the west end, and one on the south end. They have to do it in phases, obviously, so the West End was the first one to open. It's opening right in the heart of the downtown West Dearborn Business District, which is off of Michigan Avenue. Again, like I use this as like, people won't know the cross streets, but if I told you like where across from the Buffalo Wild Wings or where the Bar Louie is or Moose is, like you know where those things are, I guess if you even come to Dearborn sometimes, it's between the 2 big parking decks. So they took that space that had long been just like vacant weeds and grass, and the city then acquired it and turned it into this beautiful Peace Park, and then also transformed the space in between the businesses just off of Michigan Avenue. So it goes all the way up to Michigan Avenue and then all the way back to the street behind it.
So why is it a Peace Park?
It was built by Imagine Design and Build. It's a really cool company out of Northville. They do homes, they do public spaces. They've done some work in Birmingham and Northville and other cities to create these public spaces. I think a Peace Park was just kind of a nod to what we want to feel when we're there, the tranquility of the Peace Park. So I think it's just more of a nod to wanting peace. It's a good name, right? An all-encompassing Peace Park. Who can't love a Peace Park?
I think about the historic parks I've seen in other places where there is parks to commemorate the end of wars.
Right.
And that's what I was thinking right off the bat.
I think it's less historical than that. I think it's just more kind of a nod to the nature of the city of Dearborn and looking to bring different people and cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities together in peace. I went to the grand opening and it was a wonderful experience. There were literally just everything from like 90-year-old white people to 3-year-old Arab kids to like, it was just the absolute cross section of people who were at this park packed in there. There was a DJ, there was music. I want to point out, when I say park, you know, people can look at pictures and stuff, but I just want to give you a sense of like, this is very much like I would call like a modern park. You're not going to find playground equipment. You're not going to find a lot of like dirt. It's very much grass, but concrete structures. There's multiple pavilions. So, you know, the plan is, and when I say we, full disclosure, I'm on the West Dearborn DDA. When I say we're envisioning yoga classes, workout classes to happen here, music festivals, food truck rallies, things like that. This is very much a park that was built to be an event space. There's bathrooms on site. There's AV hookup. In the holidays, we're going to do like holiday markets. We're going to do, Santa's going to come. We're going to do big light up trees. So this is very much going to be a center of gravity for the West Downtown Business District. So if nothing else, this is definitely a placemaking play. It's absolutely beautiful. Check out some pictures online. I put some up too. Check it out. It's a beautiful park. It's going to be open basically year round. It'll be able to do activations in it. So I was really excited to have it. I can walk to it. So selfishly, I'm glad that it's there. I think people should come check it out, and it'll be really cool.
So if people don't know, to give them some scale, like what's the size of downtown West Dearborn? Like, what are we talking about as far as businesses and area?
It's probably about 3 blocks and then a block in on either side. So it's Michigan Avenue is kind of the cut through, the thoroughfare there. So you've got Michigan Avenue, basically between Monroe Avenue and Military Street. So that's about 3 blocks. Then going a block north and south to Village Drive and to Garrison. That whole area is kind of West Dearborn. You know, people think about it when you come in, you got like Ford's Garage. That's kind of your entrance, the old Andiamo space. That's kind of your entrance to West Dearborn.
Isn't that going to become like some sort of food hall or something?
So cool. We can't talk about it yet, Jer, but
I've seen posts online.
I'm going to be able to say some really, really cool things about that soon. But yes,
okay.
That's kind of your entrance there if you're coming from the east, and then from the west, you're getting to like Military Street, which is where multiple businesses are, Sacred Heart Church.
And Garrison is named that because there was a garrison, because there was a fort there.
Fort Dearborn was the, I mean, Dearborn exists initially because it was Fort Dearborn. There's a lot of history there, dating back to the 1700s. There was a fort, there's an armory. A lot of the old buildings in downtown West Dearborn, even the businesses now, were artillery storage areas. They were barracks. We still have the commandant's quarters, which is the oldest structure in Dearborn. It's really cool. So there's still a lot of get your history lesson, and you can get some food and get some drinks. And we also, as part of this Peace Park, we turned the area between those businesses there into a social district. So you can get a cup from any of the businesses there. There's, I think, 4 or 5 businesses that sell alcohol, and then you can get it and you can walk around between the businesses with your booze, or you can sit in the park between it and drink your booze.
So the excitement spills over from yesterday's episode about the Detroit Tigers. I didn't lead with it because we spent the entire episode talking about it with Fletcher Sharp, but Devon, I want to bring it up to you because you are Mr. Man About Town. And there is nothing that brings people about town like a Tigers game. And I want to talk about some of the places. There's new places. I mean, the last time, it's been 10 years. This show didn't even exist. This show's been around for a while, but
Can't believe
it's been 10 years since playoff baseball.
It doesn't seem that like that long. I can't believe we have sucked for this long. And this is just such an unexpected delight. That's the thing, is like everybody was like ramped up for Lions because we knew we were going to be good, and we are good this season, and that's great. And like, hey, that was something to look forward to. If the Lions were good, I think that was enough for Detroit. The fact that the Tigers are just coming in hot, literally and figuratively, just the hottest team in baseball. Nobody saw this coming, or some people might have saw this coming. Maybe the Tigers team did, certainly. It's just been incredible. And now it's like, surprise, surprise, we have basically new holidays are descending upon Detroit. Now, hopefully all of us have been kind of keeping track of the Tigers. We just played a series against the Astros. It was a wild card series, which meant it was a 3-game series, best of 3. We won the first 2. They were all in Houston. So as much as it was exciting that we were in the playoffs, we weren't like feeling it. I mean, sure, you could go to bars and watch games, and Comerica,
people did.
And Comerica did that, but like that's not the same. Now we are in the ALDS and the AL Divisional Series, and we are going to get some home games next week.
Yeah.
In Detroit, no matter what, because I think the first 2 are in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's a best of 5 series.
And then the next 2 will be in Detroit. So at least we know we're going to get a home game.
Yeah, and that's so exciting. And downtown is so much different. I went to the playoffs. Did you go to the playoffs 10 years ago?
I absolutely did. Yep.
Okay.
That was
so
exciting.
Downtown is so much different than that.
It is so much different.
There's so much more to look at. Everything from places like we've mentioned, like Gillies, to places we haven't mentioned, like Parlay.
Yes, Parlay Gaming, which, shout out to some of our very astute listeners who also walk the streets. So I alone don't have to.
If you're daily Detroit listener, you walk the streets. I don't know if that's
Hey, look, if you're someone like me, that is not a bad thing.
No.
We have some listeners who walk the streets and have noticed that Parlay Gaming in the old Detroit Beer Exchange looks like, at very least, it's soft opened. They haven't announced a grand opening, but it certainly is open.
It was open for Monday Night Football.
It was open for Monday Night Football.
I walked by. The liquor selection was a little thin, but it was clear it was a soft open.
Yeah,
but
so
people were there. It was busy.
I have no doubt they'll be open for the Tigers playoffs unless they play during the day for some reason.
All right, let's talk about this a little bit, because some listeners have been like, I don't quite understand Parlay
Yeah,
and what it's there. And the reality is that Fletcher's not a big sports bettor guy. But you, sir, do enjoy and partake.
Well, I kind of do. And so I want to set some context. I mean, you and I were talking, we're still trying to figure out exactly what Parlay is going to be. Clearly, it's going to be a sports bar. Clearly, they're going to
Barry Sanders involved? Is that what I heard?
He is. I believe that he is. I have it on good authority. I don't know what that means, though, right? Like,
is he going to show up?
Clearly, we have casinos. I don't go to casinos. So I don't go to casinos. I don't bet on anything. I don't even do scratch-offs. I don't play the lottery.
Oh, I do scratch-offs. I'm a cash word king.
I don't know what that is. I don't gamble. Except for the fact that with these damn sports apps now, it's so easy with like DraftKings and FanDuel and stuff. Like, I got them on my phone, and it's just fun because I watch sports, especially on the weekends. I just watch sports and college football and NFL and, eventually NBA and baseball, of course. I'm probably on my sports apps like once a day throwing a $2 bet, a $3 bet. Like, Jer, I probably spend a maximum of $20 in a given week on sports betting. Sometimes you make it back, sometimes you don't. Whatever. So I'm interested to see what this Parlay Gaming experience is actually going to be like, because I clearly don't think it's going to be actually like a casino. Like, they're not actually going to be gaming there, but it certainly seems like they're going to lean in to encouraging sports betting. I'm kind of interested to see. I think it's going to be an incredible success. I think the Beer Exchange didn't do well because it wasn't clear on what its mission was and what kind of the theme and the idea of it was. But I do think that Parlay is going to do much, much better and be really, I think, a very, very diverse downtown bar. I'm excited to see it. And hopefully the first times I can check it out is the aforementioned Tigers games. I mean, we could just be on the cusp here. I mean, I'm saying at the least we're getting playoff games this coming week. If we make a run, holy crap, we could be into some real crazy times here in Detroit in a very good way. But be respectful when you do come down here, because these playoff games are going to draw, 60,000 fans.
Yeah, I will admit that I'm always a little nervous when a ton of people come down. I want people to come down and enjoy the place as much as they want to, but I get nervous because, when I was downtown, living right downtown for a while, someone did come and down my door.
Yeah,
and
because
people tend to forget that people live and work and stuff down here and treat downtown like you would treat your own neighborhood, right? Like if you lived in Northville or I don't want to pick on anywhere specific or Rochester Hills or whatever, you probably would not throw trash all over your lawn. Just don't do that here. That's all I ask, really.
Yeah, people live here. It's a neighborhood. So come have fun, be respectful. It's going to be a great time. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, we've got a listener question for you, Mr. Devon O'Reilly.
Oh, I'm always open for those.
All right, Rachel from Detroit says that Cranes Detroit says that the Rencen is only 20% full, 60% for downtown Detroit in general after the pandemic. Devon, as you had all the tea on the Rencen redevelopment, what are your thoughts on that number and how that impacted plans? Which I know there are still some people in strong denial about what you were talking about.
Yeah, no,
I still get notes about how people say there's no way that there should be major changes to the Rencen.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the question from Rachel, and I would say that those are accurate. They basically tracks with what I've been saying. I think 20% is like almost on the nose. Probably give or take a couple percentage points. 20% is probably what the occupancy is. There are some smaller tenants. We know some of them, some companies who
Some of them are listeners.
who are still there.
This podcast is probably being played in the Rencen right now.
We do know some people, as it reverberates through the 80% that's empty.
We should do an art project in the empty Rencen and just record a podcast in the empty expanse.
So, 80% empty sounds about right. There are a few that are still there. There are most that are gone. Even the ones that are there, even like a tenant like GM, the actual employees that are in the office on any given day is incredibly sparse. So the 20-80 split sounds just about right. 20% occupied sounds about right.
From a business perspective, that is devastating for a commercial
Well, it's devastating,
property.
and it gets to the next point of Rachel's question, is that, yes, towers are coming down. Yes, towers are coming down. No, not the middle tower. That is a fully functioning and
So you are now
successful
100%
Marriott.
the towers are coming down.
Yes. Let's talk about this, Jer. Coming down is, I think, a gray area. There could be some massive adaptive reuse. I think you even had pointed out, Jer, in other cities and other countries, I think, where they've essentially carved out big spaces. So are we going to completely demo 4 towers? I don't think so. I think my over-under is probably 2 towers that are going to just get wiped out.
If there was a daily Detroit betting app,
yeah.
maybe that's what we should do.
My over-under is 2 towers.
That's how we're
going to
fund our journalism.
Over-under is 2 towers of the Rencen that definitely are going. And then I think there's some just adaptive reuse that you do. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not an architecture person. I'm not even a builder, so I can't tell you how you would do that. But I think you take a couple towers down. You could build out more green space. Maybe you lop off the top of one of the towers and build a park on the an elevated park. We've talked other cities. Right, you've been to a couple, I think, Jay, that you talked about these elevated green spaces. Maybe we do something like that. I could see that. I think people who are smarter than me are going to get really creative about what to do with the Rencen. But I'm telling you, brass tacks, the main tower is staying. Multiple towers are going.
The dream for me is after this thing is done to see a Michael Weitzner Architectural Digest video. I'm completely addicted to these, where he does this is collegiate architecture. This is the history of New York, of New York Central Park. I am addicted to that video series on YouTube with Architectural Digest. I think he's just so entertaining, but I'm also a big nerd.
Yeah, you lost me, Jaron. I don't know. I don't know this guy. I just want some great things to happen to the Rencen, and I do think they will. And I mean, obviously, we can get into the details of that, but that would require probably Dan Gilbert acquiring it, which I think we're probably going down that path. I think the conversations are being had. So
I think we're going to explore this topic a little bit more in future episodes, but that 60% number of downtown in general also ties into this idea where I think the rhythm of downtown Detroit has changed from that office plus some tourism rhythm to really being a tourism spot where it's the nights where things are busy, the weekends where things are busy. The number of people I know or have listened to the show that are maybe on the wealthier end and have a pied-à-terre in downtown Detroit. It is something I never imagined would happen 10 years ago. That it would be a tourist area.
And I want people to keep the context that we are actually in a much, much better situation than other cities, other metropolitans in terms of our use of downtown. There are cities, I want to say Dallas, Fort Worth, that the downtowns have been hollowed out. I hear stories of, people in Dallas and it's just the downtown is just a shell all the time. Not all the time. Because people aren't even going back to the office. They leaned so heavily into big business and downtown office space. We're nimble and we can pivot a little bit, and we are. And I think, Jer, we're going to talk about in the coming weeks and months, I think you and I are going to be talking about some stories about buildings that are going from office space into residential or maybe office into hotel. I think that trend is going to definitely continue.
I think some of that's going to need federal help, but federal help isn't going to happen until after the election.
Exactly.
A number of commercial real estate people have talked to me on background. One, there's a lot of commercial real estate that's going to take a bath in this region, not just downtown Detroit. There's stuff that's getting sold for 20 or 10% of its value, like out in Livonia and places
Yeah.
like that. Because in order to adaptively reuse it, you have to have enough on the bone in order to make a profit off of it. But I also think that there's going to have to be some national level, because this is not a Detroit problem, some national level subsidy to do these conversions to make them make sense. And I feel like one party may rail against it in theory, but when it comes down to brass tacks, I think either party will probably approve it.
I was going to say the good news is realistically, in this particular case, it doesn't matter who wins the election because both parties, both leaders would definitely, I think, support this for different reasons, right? I think they may have their different reasons, but I think investing in downtowns and businesses is going to be a priority no matter who it is. So this is definitely a bipartisan thing.
And the alternative is really bleak. That's the other thing. This isn't just about like, oh, well, they need support to make a bunch of money. The alternative in reality from a number of people we've talked to is actually emptiness. Like there is no demand. And it's changed a lot here and become more permanent.
I think we're going to be one of the success stories of this, but I do think you will see some casualties. I think of some of these like Sunbelt cities. I already mentioned one, but like places like Phoenix, Arizona.
Really?
And have you been to Phoenix? There's a cluster of office towers, and then there's like the rest of Phoenix. Those office towers, I just think we're going to have just tons of abandoned buildings in some of these downtown cores because if you can't reuse them, and like you said, it's expensive, what are they? There is no demand anymore. The office, it's not just a Detroit problem. Demand for office space is absolutely tanking.
Remote work, to the chagrin of some people, has really locked in. I mean, you'll see stories like Amazon bringing people back to work and whatever. But in reality, if you look at the numbers, what we figured out is what's locked in now. Like this is the new normal.
And writ large, if you are in a city, a downtown core, where there is a lot of activity in that space, so like I'm going to give you like a downtown Seattle, for instance.
Or a downtown, and much people hate to say it, a downtown Columbus.
Right. There's that activity.
Which has that college, extra college
Exactly.
juice.
So even if you're not going there for business, there are reasons to go to downtown Columbus or downtown Seattle or what have you.
Have you seen some of the plans for downtown Ann Arbor and the University of Michigan?
A ton of
huge. We can do a whole episode on that sometime soon,
but
including like transit and stuff.
Some of these more newer cities who built their downtowns up on just commerce, just offices, are really going to hurt. That's not us, so good news.
Devon O'Reilly, always good to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Jer. A little positive. Hopefully we didn't end too negative. Like I said, it's good news for us, so let's end on a positive note.
Well, I'm Jer Stays. Thank you so much to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/Daily Detroit, for keeping this thing going. Remember to share Daily Detroit with a friend, because you know what, Devon O'Reilly, the best way that I have found that people find the show is actually not social media. Although post it on social media if you want to. In reality, it's great when I run into people and they're like, hey, the show. And that happens to you. It's really funny when people know you more for the show than the day job.
Which that clashed last week when I was doing the Leadership Detroit sessions, and I had some shout outs and people who are in Leadership Detroit who are
the
big fans and listeners.
Run.
Yeah, my professional work has collided, and there are people who are actually listeners of the show who are in the Leadership Detroit class. So that was really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I am Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit and next week.